here they come.
Protecting the President of the United States.
A feeling of pride.
But the audience loved this.
For Secret Service agents,
It's a brotherhood.
the round-the-clock sacrifice means laying down your life in harm's way.
You knew it was an important job, but
Special Agent Winston Lawson was assigned to the Kennedy detail after serving President Eisenhower.
I missed a lot of birthdays. I missed a lot of Christmases.
President still walking along that inside fence.
Keeping the affable young President Kennedy safe, however, who enjoyed mingling with adoring fans, posed potential problems for his sworn protectors.
Why choose this as our goal?
When he wasn't guarding the president, Wynn would often be tasked with drawing up security measures ahead of presidential trips.
You're watching people that didn't seem to be right.
We choose to go to the moon.
His colleagues considered Wynn to be the most precise and thorough advance agent on staff. But nothing could prepare the 35-year-old agent for what he would experience in Dallas, Texas.
I can hardly believe it's been 50 years.
For Lawson, President Kennedy's fateful trip on November 22, 1963, still haunts and hurts.
That's a jet.
5 days before the president arrives in Texas, Special Agent Lawson meets with Dallas police. Wynn would be the architect of security, handling crowd control and determining President Kennedy's motorcade route.
There's Mrs. Kennedy.
When the first couple step out of Air Force One that Friday morning,
Love Field.
Special Agent Lawson stands nervously beside them, waiting to launch his plan.
Smiling. Secret Service men all around.
The number of supporters at Love Field would be dwarfed, though, by what was waiting along the route.
Oh, it was just enormous crowds.
Agent Lawson would climb into this white unmarked police car for the trip through Dallas.
Presidential limousine followed the car I was in.
The crowd swelled to 10 deep at points along the route.
The president's car is now turning onto Elm Street.
The main crowds were about God.
Suddenly, a distinct crack fills the air.
It was rifle shots, yes.
It appears as though something has happened in the motorcade route. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route.
In seconds, sheer jubilation gives way to utter chaos.
Over the radio came a report that the president had been shot.
Parkland Hospital has been advised to stand by for a severe gunshot wound.
President's convertible Lincoln surges toward the hospital.
I jumped out of the car and went back to his car.
Wynn Lawson would be the first person who burst through the doors at Parkland.
The president was hit in the head.
Agent Lawson returns to the president's limo with 2 stretchers and witnesses the grisly scene.
Someone put a suit coat over his head.
Wynn helps lift the gravely wounded president out of the back seat.
And then we were able to get him out, put him on a gurney.
Wynn stands shoulder to shoulder with the First Lady as they watch doctors and nurses try frantically to save her 46-year-old husband's life in Trauma Room 1.
This part of his head right here was all gone.
Agent Lawson knows the doctor's attempts are futile.
He was quite gray. I was convinced in my own mind that he wasn't going to make it.
The president of the United States is dead.
30 minutes after the fatal shot was fired, the unthinkable is announced at 1 p.m.
President Kennedy has been assassinated. It's official now.
Total devastation.
A hush falls over the ER. Agent Lawson doesn't have time to mourn his boss's passing.
I went with the motorcade that took the coffin out to the airport and helped put the coffin on Air Force One.
That was Oswald.
Wynn would stay behind in Texas and watch Lee Harvey Oswald deny killing the president. He would also help carry the accused assassin's rifle back to Washington. 3 days following the assassination, Wynn Lawson would provide security at JFK's funeral.
I was at the cemetery, pretty close to the grave site.
So many years later, Wynn still struggles with one regret.
I never got to say anything to the children, but looking back, I wish I had been able to talk to them about how sorry I was that it happened.
Following the assassination, President Kennedy's murder became a taboo subject in the Secret Service.
We didn't say anything to one another, and didn't for years.
Reflecting on the American tragedy, A half-century after President Kennedy's death, Wynn still replays the events from that day.
At times I wish I'd never been born.
The pain may have diminished somewhat, but the 86-year-old retired agent still harbors some deep-rooted guilt over the death of JFK.
I cried an awful lot in the years, but it happened. I've just gone on with my life.
Secret Service agent Winston Lawson, a link to one of the most infamous episodes in U.S. history, a crime he prays never to see repeated.
I'm the only agent in history of the Secret Service that didn't advance where the president was killed. And to this day, it's the same thing. I'm still the only one. Thank God.